Hi, I'm Chris and welcome to my new kitchen. Now, I'm not a kitchen expert, but I have learned an awful lot over the last few months, mainly from YouTube, about what makes a good kitchen design. So I thought I'd take you through this kitchen design project, which will summarize a lot of the things I've learned. And if you could take just one or two things away from it, I really hope that's going to be helpful to you. So let's have a look. So your kitchen may not be anything like mine, and you may not want the final design to appear anything like what I'm going to show you, but that doesn't matter. It's the principles which I want to talk to you about today. And I think there's a lot to be learned. This kitchen is in a 30-year-old house in Ipswich, England. The kitchen was, shall we say, a bit rustic and twee, even back in the 90s when it was designed. The original one, it was supposed to look old-fashioned, and that it's been immaculately looked after by the previous house owners, but I wanted something much more modern and up-to-date and contemporary, so the whole thing had to go, which is great. So I sat down with a lot of brochures, I talked to some kitchen design companies, and most of all I spent hours on YouTube watching some really, really good kitchen design channels. I'll put a couple of links up that you may have found your own. So the first thing I think you need to do is to get an idea in your head of what you want before you go and talk to some kitchen design stores. But you must definitely go and talk to kitchen design stores and specialists and just general DIY places, because the design services they offer for free are quite amazing, and you'd be daft to miss out on them. I think there's quite a lot of money to be made in installing kitchens, as you can imagine, and a lot of the stores consider that sitting down and letting their designer spend an hour with you and coming up with some computer-aided design visualizations is really the best marketing they can do. So take advantage of that, go and visit at least 2 or 3. But before you do, it's definitely best to think about a few things that you want from the kitchen. Don't just walk in and say, I'm thinking of having a blue kitchen, please. Apparently that's what the majority of people do, they tell me. So I narrowed down to 5 different things I think we wanted to look at. The first is the functionality of the kitchen. So what do we need? That's obvious, really, that you would do that, but no, not everybody thinks about it. There's no point spending hours going through with a design expert just listing the fact that you want a fridge and want this sort of thing. So let's have that all sorted out in your mind beforehand. I wanted a certain type of cooker. I wanted a certain type of hob. I wanted a fridge freezer that I already owned just to be incorporated in a dishwasher, these sort of things. So, pretty straightforward. And also wanted a very small seating area at the front. So, just a few things you need to think about the functionality of what you want in the kitchen. Then maybe have your own thoughts on the layout. Watch some of the great YouTube design videos that are knocking around. If it's a small kitchen like mine, all this stuff about working triangle isn't so important, but there are very many considerations you might want to put in. Do you want stuff on 3 walls, or 2? Do you want an island? Those sort of things. Have a think about what you want. Now, of course, the designer might come up with some better ideas, but at least go in to talk to them with an idea of what you want. Thirdly is the styling of the kitchen. Now, I don't mean the colours by that. I mean, think separately about the styling. Do you want it to be modern? Do you want it to be country, rustic type? All sorts of things like that. And not only do I want a very modern kitchen, I wanted, the ceilings are very, very tall, so there's a lot of things to think about. I wanted a horizontal sweep around. It was really important to me to try and stop the kitchen looking like a little, very tall box. So it was all about horizontal lines to me, and that was the designers who I went to see really were excited about that because, as I say, not many people do. The fourth thing I wanted to look at was maintainability. I have to clean this kitchen, and I wanted it to be easy to keep decent. I wanted the appliances to last a long time. I wanted to be encouraged to keep it clean, and also I happen to like having clean, uncluttered worktops. You might like something completely different. Finally, number 5, and right down deliberately at the bottom of the list, is colours and finish. Now, obviously, that's really important. You want the kitchen to look the right colours, but I put it down the bottom of the list because I wanted to force myself to look at all the other things beforehand. And the colours, whilst important, shouldn't be guiding the rest of the design, I don't think, anyway. I went for after looking at a lot of YouTube videos for what they call a sort of warm minimalist look, apparently, which is, minimal, not bright colours, warming, inviting, but to use natural materials in it as well. So, have hints of stone and wood and that sort of thing. So, up to you what you want to do, but do have a good think about it. So, having those 5 things all in mind, I chatted to 2 or 3 different design places. They all came up with a similar plan and layout for this kitchen, which is interesting, which is not how it was originally. So it's not as if it's the only one that was available. But really moving everything onto 2 sides of the kitchen rather than the 3 before opened it up a lot, but still allowed for enough stuff to be put in there. I think it's a tremendous design, and it shows also how much kitchen design's come on in the 25 to 30 years since the house was built. So yeah, I really liked what we came up with, the simplicity of it all. And as you can see, I love clean, uncluttered lines. There are 5 surfaces that I could identify in the kitchen, and so we needed to be careful about this. There's top cupboards, there's the splashback, there's the worktop, there's the bottom cupboards, and there is the floor. Now, 5 different surfaces, you could make them all the same colour, or you could make them all different colours. Obviously, it seemed to me to be sensible to go for somewhere in between. But I didn't really want to make the bottom cupboards the same as the top cupboards. I wanted the top cupboards to blend into the ceiling and the room to try and take away from this idea of the room being so tall. So with the top cupboards and the bottom cupboards being different, then I had to make other things match. So what I decided to do in the end was to try and make the worktops match the floor because they're on the same horizontal plane. So we got it down to 4 different finishes in the end, as you can see. The flooring is antico tiling. It's pretty standard, reasonably top end stuff. I like it. You might want to go for wood or goodness knows what else, but this, I got this in. It was pretty reasonable, actually, done by a specialist local flooring company, and I really like it because it's although it's tiles, it does have a degree of roughness to it that makes it non-slip, which is lovely. And because of its vinyl tiles, there is a chance you could drop stuff on it and it won't shatter into a billion pieces like it would do with some sort of ceramic tiles. So that was my choice on there. Let's go around the kitchen and look at the various parts of it in turn. Starting on the left-hand side, we've got the fridge freezer. This, as I mentioned before, was one I had from the previous kitchen, which was new, perfectly usable again, so we repurposed that, and that's been absolutely fine. Moving around, I don't understand why people want to make a feature of a cooker hood, which is one of the most, grim appliances in the whole kitchen, if you ask me. So I asked if the cooker hood could just be hidden away in the cupboard, and the answer is yes, it can. So we did. So the cooker hood is hidden away in the cupboard. We've got the induction hob. We've got a pretty smart Bosch oven, which I really did like and spend a bit of extra money on because it has a microwave and air fryer function built into it, which means that's less gadgets you have to have around in the rest of the kitchen. So that's excellent. Although, note to Bosch, if you do an air fryer function in a very expensive oven, can you please supply the air fryer tray that you need and not have to make people have to buy that separately afterwards? Honestly, ridiculous. We've got cupboards of all sorts. Obviously, the top cupboards up here are very high up, and you're going to need a stool to get to them. But with a tall kitchen, what's the alternative? You could stop the units and just have an empty space above there. Seem pointless. You might as well have cupboards, even if they are only for very occasional stuff. And let's face it, we've all got stuff in kitchen that we probably don't want to get to once a year. So yeah, that's absolutely fine. The splashback is a copper finished glass splashback which we had made specially, and again, I really thought it was worth spending a bit of money to do that and have it going all the way around the kitchen. The drawers I've had put in as much as possible because I just prefer using drawers to cupboards. I don't like corner units, so I haven't gone for any of these clever fold-out corner units that people use. I've literally just written off that space. You can't get to it up there, and down here you can get to it. It's right around the corner. Moving around, the sink is one which I chose to have as easy maintainability as possible, so not too many ridges and horrible things that will get dirty, and it's just functional. And again, I think draining boards to me are a bit of a thing of the past. I've got a dishwasher, so why ruin the worktop by having all sorts of stuff cut into it and fixed in draining boards? Just have the sink as it was. I can get a mat or something to use as a drain board, or a wire wrap to put out when it's necessary, if it's ever necessary. So again, just my preference on that one. There's a cooker, boiling water tap. Had one of these at a previous kitchen, couldn't live without it now. Boiling water taps, absolutely amazing. Really do like them. Dishwasher, finally some other cupboards with some longer term storage stuff in. And we have a big sweep of cupboards up the top with massive amounts of space. I mean, honestly, you just couldn't get much work. They're amazing. So those are the things I've learned from doing the kitchen. I would say look at different aspects like functionality, layout, styling, maintainability, and colours in advance. Go and talk to some kitchen designers, get their ideas off them. It's free, it's fantastic. I chose a local company to do all the installation work in the end. An independent specialist company. I was just impressed by the fact that the designer had been doing this for 25 years and had seen lots and lots of things. And one of the interesting things that came up was, as part of my idea for a horizontal sweep in the kitchen, I asked if the wooden finishes could all have horizontal grain. Because when I looked at kitchens in the showrooms, there seemed to be a mixture of vertical and horizontal, and mainly drawers were horizontal and cupboards had vertical in it. Now to me, horizontal grain, not only give you a sweep around the kitchen, but it's just happier. It's like landscape is happier than portrait. If you look at paper, different ways paper goes around, it's just happier, it's just more friendly. And so I asked if these could be provided with horizontal finishes throughout, and the answer was yes, just nobody ever asked for it, and it's just become standard for cupboard doors to have vertical grain on, and drawers to have horizontal grain in this mix and match. So I went for a horizontal sweep all the way around, and it looks great. But it was quite a tall order to get the factory to make it. They didn't charge anything particularly more, but it was just something that nobody asked for. Who knew? Also, when you're looking at the time scale, just don't forget how many people were probably going to have to be involved in doing this kitchen. Now, if you get a kitchen installation company to do it, they will probably employ most of the people for you. Possibly not everyone, though, so you need to have a think about that. If you're doing it yourself, you might have to get specialist people in. So, apart from the kitchen fitters, we also needed someone to do the plumbing. We needed someone to do the electrical work. We needed someone to do the flooring, the decorating, to unplug the gas from the old cooker. We needed specialist company to do the worktop. We needed a specialist company to do the splashback. We needed plasterers. I mean, something like 9 or 10 groups of people in all. That's a lot. It took about 14 working days start to finish, but spread over about 4 weeks, because some of the things like the worktop can't be measured up and then cut until the units are in place. And then the splashback can't be measured up and then cut until the worktop's in place. So you have these big gaps between things. So, I had to allow a good 4 weeks, and that's what it took in the end. I should also mention the lighting. If there's one area where I was really glad I took specialist advice, it was on the lighting. So we've got 3 lots in the kitchen. There are ceiling downlights. Again, I really felt it was worth spending a little bit extra on these, but most importantly, they were positioned really well above the worktop where you need them, not just on a sort of standard grid in the middle of the kitchen, which is all a bit thoughtless. These lights are in the right place and do the right thing, and they provide lovely shadows on the wall. There are also under cabinet lights. These are gorgeous, but they're really a bit for show. They help a little bit with working, but yeah, they do look nice. And just finally, there's a decorative pendant light. So this was all done by another independent company, a lighting specialist, and I'd really recommend taking advice from someone like that if you can. Anyway, I hope you found this really useful. Your kitchen, as I said, may be nothing like mine, but those are some of the things that I thought about. I really found it worthwhile. I really love this kitchen. I think and I'd like to say a big thanks to all the YouTubers who've made kitchen videos in the past that I've watched and learned so much from. There's absolutely no way this kitchen would be anything like as nice as it is, were it not for all the things I learned from them. So thanks a lot. And yeah, best of luck with your own kitchen project.